Okay, so it's the 23rd of April. I'm here with Peter White, and we're doing the Wingman Walk. Um, Basically, we're going to talk over this for quite a while, so I think 6 years, but we'll get to that now. So yeah, just a general chit chat, really, mate, and what your thoughts are on mental health within the prison service, how it affected you, if you're okay with that, how you sort of affect the prisoners. Um, but firstly, how you doing, mate?
I'm
Nice to see you again.
I'm well. Nice to see you. Been a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Just to give a bit of background, really, I've known Pete for 40 years, and 40 years. Well, yeah, about 35 years,
Yeah, it's been a long time.
and I know it's probably make Pete feel a bit uncomfortable, but Pete was a massive help to me when my son died. Um, After he lived for 2 weeks, and Pete was there, and he helped me out massively. And you forget these things, and when we reconnected the other week, it all come flooding back for me to the point where I hadn't spoken to my brother for quite a while, and I actually got on the phone and phoned him and said, "Look, well, text him and said, look, let's get past this." So yeah, massive for me, mate. So again, I know you're going to think it's going to be uncomfortable, but thank you very much for the help you gave me years ago, mate.
Pleasure.
It was massive,
To be
absolutely
fair,
massive.
I've always been if you're someone's mate, you're the mate,
Yeah,
and like not just for good times, for bad times too. Like you've got to have. You can't be like conditional, can you?
no,
If you're someone's friend, you're the friend there for like you say, they offer you a point, great. They need a shoulder to cry on, great. It's the way it is.
so tell us a little bit about you, Pete. So how old are you, mate?
So me, I'm 50 now. Um, I work in architectural aluminium now. Sounds flamboyant, isn't?
Yeah.
It's quite a mundane job, but it pays the bills, and there's not a lot of stress involved with it, really. You
And
know,
I suppose that's a massive parallel um, from the prison service, really. I suppose, isn't it? Because I expect there to be quite a lot of stress involved in the prison service.
oh yeah. I mean, like after coming out of the prison service, I moved up into the Lake District, and the change of pace from a city centre jail. I mean, it's probably one of the busiest jails in the country. To going up to the Lake District and having a job working on like doing maintenance really on a holiday park.
Yeah.
It took me some adjustment to wind down.
So you went to the Lake District as a prison officer.
No, no, my friend moved up to a jail in the Lake District,
Yeah.
and I went up to see him and just fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
So what we did was just sold up and went.
Right. So just thinking, so obviously try and build a bit of structure. So you're 50 now. What about kids, mate? You got any kids?
Yeah, I got two girls, 19 and 17. The absolute apple of my eye.
Yeah.
Everything I do is pretty much based around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like most parents, I should imagine.
And are you still with the mum?
No, me and the mum have split up 7 years ago. We was together for a very long time. We're still very civil. Still get on. The main priority for both of us is the kids. Like,
Right. Yeah.
um, she's a brilliant mum. Me and her, we weren't getting on at the time, and thought it was best to just part ways for everybody's sake.
Yeah.
Um, like I say, I still speak to her now. The girls are our priority.
Yeah. Right. So when did you? Okay, so let's start with this. Why did you go into the prison service? What year did you go into the prison service?
Man, what would it was? I was probably about 34, 34. Yeah, about 34.
So 16 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
16 years ago.
So am I right to think you've been out of the prison service for about 10 years now?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's concentrate on that 6 year period. So why did you actually go into the prison service?
I needed. I worked at Land Rover for like 15 years. Great job, great pay. Very, very monotonous.
Yeah.
Very boring. Very repetitive. I get bored easy. I'm almost itchy
Yeah.
when I'm doing nothing. So like, I was working nights one night with a bloke called Andy, and I says, "Oh, I'm so bored of doing this." It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and he just turned to me and went, "You know what you should be? A screw."
Huh.
And I laughed at the time. I thought that would be a brilliant job, like a proper challenging role. And my wife at the time had just got a decent job, so we could afford for me to drop my wage and retrain.
Yeah.
So I went home that morning, had a look online at prison service jobs, i.e., a prison officer, and there's an online sort of initial assessment stroke exam, and I'd done it that morning before I went to bed after coming off nights, and then it just sort of escalated from there, and I got more and more interested until I actually applied and formally and got the job. So yeah, it was about a change for me and seeing whether I could help others.
Yeah. And because do you know what? Obviously, leading up to this week, obviously when you said you could do to this morning, I'll be thinking about a lot of stuff and what I was going to sort of talk to you about. And the stuff that come up for me is obviously I actually spent time in prison as a prisoner, and I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what it would have been like if I'd have saw Pete. Do you know what I mean? If I,
Yeah, yeah,
how surreal and mad that would have been. Because obviously, like I know, obviously we knocked about together as kids, and we got up to some crazy shit, didn't we?
yeah, very much so.
Out
Yeah, man.
fighting and all that sort of stuff. And I went down the crime route, and you was a worker, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
You flew straight. Um, but it's that sort of parallel, isn't it? Of we both grew up in the same place, we both sort of experienced the same stuff. The drugs that are about and all that sort of thing. And then you went your way and I went my way. Um, and it's I don't know. Do you know where I'm trying to come from? It's about two people come from the same place and following such different paths, but such similar paths. We both ended up in the same place
yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
but in different roles.
I feel like one small decision can 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 change a life. That sounds really dramatic, but like you say, we're very similar people now. We're very similar people then.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Look, I know people who take drugs and stuff, and people close to me and stuff. I see what it does to people. So like, I decide it's not for me, and that was about as basic as it got really.
yeah,
And then, like you say, like I've always I've always worked. I'm one of these people who need a purpose.
yeah,
Like so, if I get up in the morning and I've got nothing to do, I'm a little bit lost.
yeah,
So like, I don't really enjoy work. If I won the lottery, I don't think I probably would, but I'd have to do something.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So yeah, getting back to it, I think I was one of these people who Monday morning work,
yeah,
Friday afternoon fun time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're what do you say? You're 34. So you've entered the prison service. How did that feel?
Uh, it was a mixture of feelings. It's exciting. You know what I mean? Apprehensive. Like there's definitely nerves there. It's a prison. Like there's some dangerous people there.
Yeah.
There's dangerous people out here. Um, Coming from our background, I'm not too scared about too many things.
Hmm.
I'm not John Rambo, but I've lived a bit of a life.
Yeah.
And going in at 34, it's not like I was 18 and a bit green. I'd got a bit of life experience behind me.
Because so I mean we can do the parallel thing here. I know for me going into prison, and I was a criminal at the time. I was up to no good, and it was, the one thing, and this isn't me giving it the big one, but the one thing that always sticks in my mind is everyone always said it don't matter who you are, the first night you spend in prison, you will cry, right? And the strange thing was I didn't,
Yeah, yeah.
but for me it wasn't because I was like ultra tough or anything like that, but it was better than the life I was living outside.
Oh,
I mean, I
definitely.
was 8 stone, full blown heroin addict. I was on death's door. I had a £300 a day habit, and I was getting into some real bad stuff. So, to a certain point, prison worked for me. I like to think I'm one of prison's success stories because I got clean in prison, stayed clean in prison, and came out clean essentially. 13 stone. I was doing well, looking well. So prison actually worked for me. Um, but from a prisoner's point of view, prison for me was what you made it.
Oh, definitely.
And so going in, there's trepidation and all that sort of stuff, and worry. And I suppose where our views will be interesting really is how we perceive mental health within the prison system. For me, there was nothing there. There was no help there, and it just seemed like a lot of the people that was in there all had a mental health issue.
For me, like you say, a lot of people that they reckon when I was in there, they reckon 80%. I think that's probably a bit low.
Yeah.
80% of prisoners had mental health issues.
Yep.
In my experience, in the 6 years I was there, I would say more.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not talking like fully blown sort of, life threatening mental health issues, although a lot of people did have. I'm just talking like inside there, the smallest problem is amplified.
It is. Yeah.
It's, for prisoners, it is amplified.
Yeah.
And like I said to loads of people, a phone call to a prisoner for 2 minutes to their son on their birthday
Yeah.
is a massive deal
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah.
but not necessarily to a prison officer.
No.
Because we can go home and see our kids. Like the prisoners used to say to me, "Oh, you're the same as me. You're stuck in here." I'm not.
No.
I wasn't. Like I could go home, take my kids to the park, tell them I love them every time I'm with them.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier. So like you could see, even if people went in there without mental health issues, you could see how they could develop pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Because the cells, contrary to what people think about Sky TV and pool tables, absolute nonsense.
I know.
Absolute nonsense. So like even my own brothers have gone, "Oh yeah, I'd love to go in there. It's like a Butlins." It is not Butlins.
Ah.
You know it is not Butlins. So when you're stuck in a cell with a toilet and a sink and 2 beds, you eat in there, you sleep in there, you go to loo in there,
Yeah.
and it's 8 by 12, and you're with another person who you don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like Butlins to me.
No.
I've been to Butlins. It's not great. It's better than that.
Yeah, oh mate, when you think of the actual, the setup of jail, and so obviously I done all my time in the Green. I've done 16 months actually in the Green because of being on judge's remand, and my Cody was out on the run. So anyway, so I'd been on normal remand on C-wing for 3 months. And those 3 months were horrendous. Obviously, we got no when you come through reception. I didn't know how to deal with stuff, and you go through and they ask if you've got a drug problem, and I said yeah, because I thought right, I'm going there now. They're going to put me in the hospital wing. They're going to detox me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to give me some counselling. They're going to do all this. I'm going to get looked after. Which is why the first night wasn't horrendous for me, but so yeah. So I've told this officer I've got a drug problem, and you get segregated off, and I ended up in the hospital wing. So the first night I'm in the hospital wing, in a dorm with another 4 or 5 blokes. One's on a nebulizer, so you all night, right? It's like got Darth Vader in the room.
Yeah.
You got some big lump of a kid who's pretty much talking to himself. There's another big black guy, like a really huge black guy, and he's talking like a baby. Do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, wow, this is. And then there's people coming in and out. Because I was in there for about a week, I think, three days, something like that. And you know what always stuck out for me? I'd be in the hospital wing, and you could hear the prison. And there's no sound like a prison sound, is there?
No, at
It's
all.
like the sound never stops, and it's always it's when you walk into a dinner hall, it just sounds like that all the time.
Like a big blanket of white noise.
Exactly that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm just like, honestly, I'm there thinking, shit. And that first realization of it doesn't matter who I know, it doesn't matter how smart I think I'm, anything like that. I ain't getting out of this room.
No,
And
that's when reality kicks in, isn't it?
it hit me like a slab. And like you say, you could see why people with mental health issues, how it could get exasperated in there. So have you got any sort of examples of seeing anything like that, of watching somebody come in with maybe slight mental health issue and it getting made worse.
Oh yeah, I mean, like that kind of thing you're describing there is commonplace because it, a prison is just a smaller community of what is out there.
Yeah.
And so when you're out there and you can't get any help with mental health, it's no different in there, except for you struggle to get help in there, but your surroundings, you've no family in there. You can't go for a walk in these beautiful hills.
No.
You're stuck in a cell.
Yeah.
Your exercise is on a fenced yard, concrete. You know, it's not trees and birds and stuff. You know, like it's harsh. It's a harsh environment. Like I say, people think it's butlins. It isn't. It's really oppressive.
Yeah.
And the regime doesn't help because a lot of the time, the short staffed. Now, the staffing levels, they go up and down, and so like staff are moved around. But when you've only got an hour's worth of exercise a day,
Yeah.
and then you're stuck in your cell all day,
Yeah.
I mean, at sometimes they say 23-hour bang up.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It's not exaggerated. You're in that cell 23 hours.
Yeah.
Look, that isn't good for anyone's mental health.
No.
Even the strongest of people, the strongest minded, the physically strongest, they are not going to thrive in an environment like that.
No.
And like, you're not going to help people. It's not going to help their mental health. It's not going to help anything about them. It's not going to help their actual health.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a. You can see why some of these prisons and stuff in like Scandinavian countries are trying a different approach.
Yeah.
Because this isn't working for anyone. I don't mean just rehabilitation. I mean, like, we're talking mental health, and that can't be good for anybody's mental health.
No. I think it definitely shows you how mentally strong you are being in a prison, because you think I know for instance, when I went in there, my mental health wasn't great because of the withdrawal. I was on stupid amounts of drugs, and now I'm in an environment where it can be it can be volatile. There's always somebody trying to pull a move. There's always,
definitely.
And you even what you know what nice about prison, even when somebody's a slight situation can just blow up. I've seen people sort of get slashed over matches.
Yeah.
And it's not over matches. It's because of somebody disrespecting someone, or you should have done this, should have done that. And it's so easy to try and you try and stay out of everybody's business, but it's so easy just to fall into it, and then before you know it, you're in the middle of a situation, and it's like I don't even know how I've got here. Do you know what I mean?
But there's actually people in there who will get you into that situation
Exactly,
purposefully.
Yeah.
Like, there are drugs in prisons. Like, even tobacco. When you could smoke, you can't smoke in prison now. But when you could, tobacco was almost like dealing in gold.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a currency. But people, especially naive people or vulnerable people, they would be encouraged to have tobacco off someone,
Yeah.
knowing and that they've got to give twice the amount back.
Yeah,
They call it double bubble.
Yeah.
And they had no means of paying that back.
No.
So immediately they're scared stiff, because the repercussion can be quite harsh. Like you say, you've seen people getting cut up and everything over matches.
Yeah.
That isn't an exaggeration. That's true.
Yeah. So it happened.
With the amount of staffing levels, you can't safeguard every prisoner. It doesn't happen. On our wing, B wing, it was a notorious wing for being quite harsh. It was ran by the screws, and it was ran almost military.
Yep.
I mean, it has relaxed somewhat, now, but it was a harsh wing, but it worked.
Yep.
Because people knew that the prisoners actually enjoyed knowing what they were getting and when they were getting it.
Yeah.
Because for a prisoner, there's nothing worse than not knowing when your next period of exercise is.
Yeah.
When your next phone call can be made.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing worse than not knowing. But if you know that 10 o'clock every day, you're getting exercise, 1 o'clock every day, you're going to get the opportunity to make a phone call.
Yeah.
That they can structure. The lives have got a bit of a structure.
The one thing that's the one thing I sort of said to you last week when we was talking. The one thing I did like about the Green is it was a screws jail, and look, you knew where you was. If you messed about, it weren't going to end well for you. If you just played the game, stayed out of the way, stayed on the radar, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then you'd be all right. Um, See, when a jail's run by the cons, it's a mess.
yeah, yeah,
You've got no structure at all. So that yeah, it sounds a little bit screwboyish, but I preferred it being the Green, and we knew what I was getting. Simple as that. Um, so yeah, I mean, like even when I went in, I expected to go to education, or I thought I'd get some sort of I don't know, some sort of retraining. And do you know what? I got nothing. And
yeah, yeah,
this isn't me sitting on my pity pot. It's just that, I mean, when I first went in there, I was lucky, you see, because a few people knew me dad. I got some tobacco given to me. People watched out for me. I made sure I weren't a loudmouth, and I just stayed quiet. But I watched the amount of times I watched people, young kids even, or say even my Cody. I remember him coming in, right? And he's in a cell, and I'm not going to name the guy, but he's in a cell with a traveller. And he's saying to me, oh, this guy's great. He's saying, he's let me borrow his radio. He's giving me packets of crisps. And like a packet of crisps in prison is massive.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. Don't sound, yeah,
People
yeah.
don't
It
get
is.
it, do they?
No,
And I'm saying to him, be careful there. Anyway, next thing you know, 3 weeks down the line, your man's in, my code is into him for like 30, 40 quid, which is a big amount of money in prison.
yeah,
And he's able to get it sent to him on the outside, because what these people do is they prey on you. So you come in, you've got nothing. Oh yeah, there's a radio you can use. There's a bit of tobacco. But the next thing you know, it's canteen, and they're like, "You got that stuff for me?" And you're like, "What are you on about?"
yeah,
Oh no, listen, mate, that was just like, and then
yeah.
because
Nothing's for free.
you haven't got it, then it gets doubled up, and it gets doubled up, and it gets doubled, and that was how. It's like I talk to my missus about stuff about how criminals actually really act, and criminals aren't this glamorous
No,
um, you know,
honor amongst
honor
thieves.
amongst thieves, that
Yeah,
sort of stuff. What they will do, a criminal will find your weakness and prey on it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Especially in there.
and in jail, it's a game in jail. Do you know what I mean? It's how it's done. And it's like I say, I've watched people come in and just watch them decline, man, because they've just been they've just had the arse ripped out of them.
But it's scary enough going into jail, like you say. But then when you're preyed upon like that, like, oh, there you go, and you think, oh, you know what? It isn't that bad. He's been nice to me.
Yeah,
And then, like you say, at the end of the week, it's canteen, and they want everything out of your canteen
yeah,
because you have had a smidgen off them. They want all of what you've got,
yeah,
and like so straight away, you're trusting people. You've gone in scared.
yeah,
Then you found someone. You thought, oh, this is okay. And then at the end of the week, it's all come crashing down.
yeah,
So now you can't trust anyone.
yeah,
You're scared.
yeah,
In fact, you're more scared because if you don't give it him, violence is going to ensue. Like
yeah.
he's going to take your stuff, and then he's not going to go thank you very much. He's probably going to give you a bit of a dig for the pleasure.
And this is where you decide what you're going to be in prison. If you're going to be a victim, or if you're going to fight for yourself. But you're best not to get into that situation in the first place. But if you don't know, you don't know, dear.
No, well, like you say, like some people have never been to prison, don't know the game,
Yeah,
and it is a game, like you say. There are rules, not even rules that the prison sets. There's rules between the prisoners,
yeah, yeah.
and like if you're not savvy to those rules, you can get et up pretty quick.
And see, the thing is as well, it's like once somebody's got the arsehole with you in the prison, and say they're known, everywhere you're going, somebody's going to be on your case,
Yeah.
because you can't get away from it.
No, there's no running.
Don't get me wrong, it never happened to me. I was lucky, but I watched it happen. And it used to break my heart to see it happen. But you know what? And on another note, I used to go, well, do you know what? That's your problem, not mine. But the one thing I will say, that is the crappy part of prison, and it is horrible, and it's kill or be killed a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? And without saying dramatic, it's like you've got to fight, stand up for yourself. But on the other side of it, because I'd spent so much time in the one place, and it was essentially a dispersal, Nick. I got to know a lot of the people in there. Now, there's one guy in there. So I ended up on K-Wing, right? So first 3 months, no job, no nothing, and then I've got to, know a few people. Then I've got to. It ended up I've been number one cleaner on K-Wing, and I'll be honest with you, the way I used to make my perks, I used to get my my extra milk and all that sort of stuff. Was I would clean the office where they used to do the piss tests.
Yeah, yeah,
So I would see who's going to get piss tested,
yeah,
right? There'd be a list there. So I'd let everyone know. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? I'd be going, right, you're getting piss tested in a couple of days' time,
yeah.
or
Be
I'd,
clean.
yeah, make sure you're clean and make sure you got some piss ready. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I've actually sold piss in jail.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. It sounds ridiculous, but like it's quite the commodity, clean urine.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I'd actually, in a surgery glove, because I was clean, I'd piss in it and give it to them, and they'd get through. You'd have
Yeah.
to keep getting a temperature and all that sort of
And then
stuff.
people had it down the trousers,
Yeah.
pierce
Used,
the glove
used to have it on a
into a
string
tube.
off,
Yeah,
off,
yeah,
off, off the blanket, like the green blanket, and you'd have it on a surgery glove tied up in there, keep it there so it's warm. So then when you do it, you just and you do you know what? And do you know what I used to love about jail? The uh,
ingenuity.
ingenuity, perfect
Yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah,
And like so, you
yeah,
make sure your nail on your thumb would be in a certain way, so you could just
yeah.
do that,
Just
and
nick it.
yeah, so the piss would go straight into the thing.
Yeah,
I saw so many brilliant, mate. The best thing I ever saw of engineering, right, was a bag of crisps go from C wing, right, over to I think it was B wing, yeah, on a piece of string across the yard,
yeah, yeah. Lines.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we used to spend all our night, right. So so what we do, we get a green blanket, you pull a thread out, and you tie them together. So you've got a ball of string now, right, and then you'd use a tea bag, a tea pack bag, which is a see-through bag,
yeah, yeah.
some toilet roll that was wet, put it in there, tight round. You'd run from one side of your cell, throw it across the yard through the window. Somebody from the other side do the same, and you pull on it so they wrap round each other.
Oh yeah.
And mate, I used to absolutely piss myself laughing. Used to watch bags of crisps and Mars bars floating across the yard.
Well, I used to say to prisoners in there, if you applied yourself out there like you're doing here, you'd be
Yeah,
a millionaire.
yeah, yeah,
Like because some of the things that people came up with, not just the lines and stuff, but like like tapping into the electric and everything.
yeah,
Like it was mad.
yeah.
But like they did it. Like plus that's getting back to like how much time you've got on your hands in
Yeah.
your cell.
Do you
So
know? Do you know I used to make a cup of tea? I worked in the kitchen for about 3 months, which was a great gig. So what I'd do is I used to get a whisk, right? So you know the metal prongs off a whisk.
yeah,
So I break one of them. So you got two bits of metal now, right? Off a whisk, and then you'd have your electric in your cell. So we put so you need the lead you put into the back of your radio.
yeah,
So you got the two holes. So obviously you turn the electric off, put the metal in there, a box of matches in between them. Yeah. So now you've got this wire coming from the mains, which is the lead, the two bits of metal coming out of it, and then a cup of water, turn it on and put that in there. It used to heat the water up.
yeah, yeah, like electrodes.
Mate, it was like, that's amazing. We used to do ourselves fucking toast. Remember the beds, the metal rack
Yeah,
beds?
yeah.
So you'd plait your blanket in a certain way so you could burn it and do it, and mad. So just some stuff. But I mean they're the funny parts, and
Like you say, that there is the flip side of having too much time on your hands.
yeah,
You can either become inventive or you can disappear inside yourself.
yeah, yeah,
And it's the inventive people who are making their use of their time in jail
yeah,
will thrive.
yeah,
The not so inventive people, the people who are really down on the luck and really suffering, they will suffer because there's just too much time to be had. It's
yeah,
too much time to think. There is such a thing, isn't there?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you've got too much time to think, like your problems just amplify and amplify.
So going on back to mental health. So where what's your overall feeling about mental health in prisons? What I'm not asking you what needs to be done because that's a big question.
Oh yeah.
But what
My
what
gym.
did you see?
Well, I've seen everything. Like I've cut people down from hanging. Like we used to have a thing on our belts called a fish knife, and a fish knife was a blade encased in
Yeah,
plastic, where you could just go up to, like whatever people had made, like ripped up blankets, anything to hang themselves with.
Yeah.
So like we used to have a fish knife, and I've cut in 6 years. I probably cut 4 people, 5 people down. I've seen people actually like commit suicide.
Yeah.
I've seen dead people in there.
Yeah.
I've seen people do horrendous things to themselves.
Yeah.
Just because of mental health. I mean, horrendous things. I've seen people eating their own flesh.
Yeah.
The self harm, like I've seen stuff that I never ever thought I'd see. Never thought I'd see it with self harm.
What sort of things? Obviously, I don't get too graphic, but
people putting things inside their own cocks and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like people maiming themselves.
Yeah.
Like people like like when you say cutting up, when people put little lacerations down their arm.
Yeah.
I've seen like big lacerations, and then the flesh between the lacerations, people eating it.
Wow.
Like, and we've been there, and you're not allowed to help them because they refuse help
Yeah.
until they pass out.
Yeah.
So one fella lost, what can I say, over 3 pints of blood. Now, the fella should have been dead.
Yeah.
Now, until he passed out, we couldn't go in with the paramedics and help him.
Yeah.
Now, that is not normal behaviour.
Yeah.
Like that person needs serious help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh,
So,
yeah.
morning. So, how did that affect your mental health?
The thing is about me. I'm not saying like all people, but me becoming a prison officer, it hardens you. Now, you've known me for years. I'm not the softest of people anyway. I'm not, like I say, I'm not tough or anything, but like I've lived a life. You see things, but you become it either swallows you up, or you become really hardened towards it. But that transfers outside as well. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my children didn't really like the person I became when I was a prison officer, because all it does, you expect it's not even like, will this person let me down? It's just when.
Yeah.
So it's not if,
That
it's
will
just
with
when.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
like, but that transfers to outside. So instead of looking for the good in people, you're immediately looking for the worst in
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And it's really not a good, it's not a nice person to be.
No.
It really isn't. But like, you see things that stay with you that they haven't really affected me. I don't think anyway. But, like, when you join, there's no talk of this. They say, oh, people will self-harm, people will do this, people will do that. And you expect that because of the place it is. There's self-harmers out there, so there's going to be self-harmers in there. But you don't expect to see the things you see.
Yeah.
Like I walked into a cell one night, and someone had cut a main artery in the wrist and pretty much decorated their cell in blood.
Mm.
Now, the sight was horrific. The smell was like really metallic.
Yeah.
And, I will see that. Don't get me wrong, I don't wake up, like screaming about it.
Yeah.
But it's something that you can't unsee.
Yeah.
So, like, I will see that until the day I die.
Yeah.
It's a room painted white, but there's barely any white left.
Yeah.
The floor's drenched in blood. The walls are drenched in blood. And the fella's there with a towel around his arm, crying because what he wanted to do out of frustration was nick his arm for some kind of attention or some help.
So he had to get took seriously, I suppose.
So what he's after is some help.
Yeah.
And he's asked for help and obviously didn't get it.
Yeah.
So his next step is, if I do a little something now, they will have to help.
Yeah.
Well, that little something turned into a rather big something.
Morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big old horses, them, ain't they? Yeah.
So that little thing has turned into quite a big thing, and he's had to go out and have like vascular surgery and stuff because he's gone through an artery. You know, so when I got to the cell, he's crying because he thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
And when I enter the cell, I think he's going to die.
Yeah.
Because you take your worst horror movie and then, like, this is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real. So, like, what you're walking into is an absolute bloodbath.
Well, see, what comes up for me there when you say about the smell and the metallic taste in the air, that sort of stuff. I mean, that essentially is what PTSD is made up from, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's about, so the next time, instinctively, what your brain and body will do is next time it smells or tastes or experiences that sensation, your body and your mind will automatically think you're back in that situation.
Oh, definitely. You know, like, you cut your finger now, like everyone does, and I go, and you know, you lick the blood or suck your thumb, or you immediately think of that situation, because I couldn't believe how, like, you know, the iron smell.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds like it's affected me. It hasn't, but it's like listening to a song. You transferred right back to where you were.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah. And it's, I think what it's about, it's your brain telling you, isn't it? Oh, you're in the same sort of situation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's instinct, you know. So we looked at, obviously, so the prisoners going through what they're going through, and I know they have listeners, don't they? Sit down and have a cup of coffee or what?
Yeah, sound.
They have listeners to talk to, don't they? So what's your experience of prisoners talking to listeners? What do you think about that?
I think the listener scheme,
Could you just explain what a listener is?
a listener is someone who's had a very, well, from what I believe, a very basic training of like, I think it's by the Samaritans, is it not?
Yeah.
By the Samaritans, and it's a very basic sort of introduction into mental health, and like it says on the tin, listening to people, listening to their problems. From what I gather, it is very basic, and, like, they're not given any, like, formal training. But then, what prisoners can do is ask for a listener to go to their cell if they're struggling. Now, it's got its pros and cons, because some listeners go on the listening course,
Yeah.
so they can run errands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of them do it just to get out the cell, because 23-hour bang up, why wouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some listeners do actually give a damn.
Yeah. See, my experience of listeners was a good one. It's what you say. You see a lot of listeners. I think there's a lot of people motivated by getting out of the cell. A lot of people motivated because there's decent people, and then you used to find that they used to get sort of dragged into doing the errands. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, see, even like that in prison, it'd be like you'd see somebody. So, oh yeah, I used to know the guy who used to do the visitor centre. So every day he'd get out of the prison, go over to the visitor centre.
Yeah, yeah.
And the trouble, the problems he ended up having off the cons.
Yep.
Because he wouldn't bring stuff over.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, he's getting called a screw boy, a grass, a this, a that. So it's just.
The trouble is, if you're a listener, and the thing is, we can't really refuse people a listener unless you know that time and time again they're being manipulative. So, if the hardest bloke on the wing requires a listener,
Yeah.
we can't really say no.
No.
So the listener goes to his cell. You leave him alone in there. You know, like, this is their time.
Yeah.
Now the hardest bloke in the cell is saying, "Do this for me."
Yeah.
The listener doesn't really want to do it, but really has very little choice,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because the hardest bloke on the wing is going to educate you otherwise.
Yeah. 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 See, I used to say as well, which was just not so much a shame, but even what I was always conscious of when I was a cleaner is, you get somebody, you end the bang up, that sort of stuff, at the end of the day, and somebody will pass someone at the door and go, get that to cell 24, and you're like, no, no, no. Anyway, you end up doing it. I didn't mind doing a little bit of it. I didn't want to know it was in there. I didn't mind doing a bit of it, because that was on the prisoner side of things. That was your job.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You had to do a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But next thing you know, it goes to that cell, and that cell says what was supposed to be in there is in there. So now I saw people get set up.
Oh
Right?
yeah, big time.
Because number one, it says send that to number 10, and then in between it go from number 1 to number 10. Number 10 said it's not in there, so now there's a a staged beef going on,
Yeah.
and they're saying, "Well, it must be you who took it then."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And next thing you know, that cleaner then has got to do everything for these people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was so hard when he was in prison trying to stay out of getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That would be like as a prison officer. I never used to have a sweet off someone. I never used to have a crisp. I never used to have a thing off anyone. And I got on with a lot of prisoners in there because a lot of prisoners, like out here, they're decent people, really. You know what I mean? A lot of my pals from where we grew up,
Yeah.
I've seen in there. You've been in there. You know,
Yeah.
like loads of people. I would say that you're a good bloke.
Yeah.
Probably not at that time
No, no, no.
because you'd probably admit that yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But as soon as an officer takes anything, same kind of situation. Like I give someone something and I shouldn't give it them. You are theirs.
Yeah.
So like when people used to go, all right, Mr. White, do you want a sweet? I go, no thanks, and they go, it's only a sweet. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'd go, sound. I really appreciate the offer, but no tar.
Yep.
And they were always scratching their heads just to go like, why?
Yeah.
And I used to explain, look, a sweet today, something else tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I have nothing from you, I owe you nothing.
Yep.
And I used to do what I could for the prisoners within my boundaries. Well, for some prisoners, within my boundaries. Like if you came onto the wing and I know you're a good egg and I've seen you before and you've been on my wing before and you want a phone number put in on your list, I will go to security or whoever I need to go to get it put on your list quicker than what it would normally take.
Yeah.
Now that for me is an example of me doing a favour for someone.
Yeah.
It's within my remit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get any trouble for it, and you can't have me over for anything because it's what I can do.
Mm-mm-mm.
You know what I mean?
So have you ever experienced or seen a prison officer get drawn into anything like that? I don't expect you to say names, and
No,
maybe something you don't want to talk about. I get
when
that.
when I was there, people did get drawn into it. Um, I used to work with an officer, a female officer who got involved with a prisoner, and this is like an extreme case. She got involved with a prisoner, ended up losing a job, ended up losing a child. Not losing the child, but like the child's father got custody of the child
Yeah.
because she was deemed unfit.
Yeah.
She got into drugs. She ended up going to prison herself, and then ultimately lost her life.
Took her own life.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Now that is an extreme case. Other things, people are planted there. It sounds really, it sounds like something out of a film, but people have taken that job just to run errands, do favours. They've taken that job. They know people in there, and their sole purpose was, the job was a cover for helping out. Like, I mean, there's gangs in
Career
there, and that.
criminals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like that has happened. That has happened. But like,
It's a lot of trouble to go to, isn't it? Really, but it obviously must pay
well, you think a mobile phone is worth 500 quid
in there. Yeah.
in there,
Yeah.
500 quid. So like, if someone says to you, bring 2 mobile phones in, we'll give you £1,000. But then
They've got you then, haven't they?
that is if your job is worth 2,000 quid or 1,000 quid, you ain't being paid very well.
No. No.
Like I was asked by people to take stuff in, and my answer to them was, if you can pay my wage till I am 65, you've got a deal.
Mm. Mm.
They couldn't.
No.
So it
And
wasn't.
you always know it's going to be the case, I know, didn't you? Yeah. So
it was never going to happen.
So I was coming to well, not so much then, but because I think there's so much we ain't covered. I think we need to probably do another one, to be honest. But what's your view on firstly mental health for the prisoners? What needs to be done?
They need more people. They need more people to listen to them, because like out here, there isn't enough help. But not like out here. They haven't got families to talk to. They haven't got friends to talk to. Sometimes they are just left to stew.
Yeah.
And when something's left and all you've got is time to think, and you've got no help, and your surroundings really aren't ideal, it's only ever going to add to it. So like, when I say like problems get amplified, it's not an exaggeration. Problems in there, a small problem out there which would do your head in there would be potentially fatal.
Yeah.
Now that
No,
sounds
no.
dramatic, but potentially fatal. And when you've seen the amount of people who have self-harmed, who have attempted suicide, who are screaming for help, but there's no one to help them.
Mm.
You know, as prison officers, we have had zero training in mental health, and when over 80% of the prison population suffers from it, there's something really missing, isn't there?
Mm. Mm.
Something really missing.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we're at the within the scaffolding industry, we're sort of governed by an organisation called NASC, which is the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation. And there's a guy there, great guy called Henry, and what he's doing is he's now running a scheme. We're trying to get prisoners. So we go into the prisons and we start training them by VR how to be scaffolders.
Yeah,
So when they come out of prison,
a trade.
they've
Yeah,
got a trade. So we're doing that at the moment. Do you think that something that's got legs? Do you think that helps?
definitely. Anything. I says to you right at the beginning, I'm a person who has to have a purpose. Now, in jail, when you've got no purpose and there's no hope and you can't see any kind of way of, of, of breaking that cycle, and it is a massive cycle. You know, like I used to call it the revolving door,
Mm,
especially on the detox wing,
mm,
because you get a little bit of help with your detox, but then on release, you get no help.
mm,
So the first thing you're going to do is commit crime
mm,
because you haven't got a trade,
mm.
you haven't been taught in anything, or you've been there, you haven't learnt anything. Commit crime, get your drugs, be back in, and
Yeah,
like revolve and revolve. You know, it used to be like a joke. I used to go onto the first night centre and go, "Oh, all right, Hines, nice to see you again." And it had been 2 weeks since
yeah,
I let you out,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it would be massively frustrating as well because there've been people there that I put a lot of time into, and they went out clean, and you really thought they had a chance, but upon their release, they've got nothing.
Mm.
They've got no money, no job, no family because they've pissed all the family off by their drug habit. You know what I
Alienate
mean?
themselves. Yeah,
And so they have got no alternative but to come back in. So when you say at the beginning, "Oh, I felt quite at peace with coming into jail," there's a lot of them that could do jail standing on their head because at least they've got a bed,
yep,
which is more than they've got out there,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and at least they've got their medication. They've got their medication, and they don't have to break the law to get it. They don't have to get into debt to get it. They don't have to get beat up. They don't have to, you know, they've got they've got a bed. It may be uncomfortable. They've got food. It may be tasteless, and they've got medication.
mm.
But that's a lot more than they've got out there.
Yeah. They can survive. So yeah, do you know what what used to drive well, not driving mad, wind me up was used to be like, you'd be in a cell with people and they're talking about doing the next crime and they're gonna and say, well, I'm gonna do it in Redditch because then when I get nicked, I'll go to Blakenhurst.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're thinking, so you're doing a crime to get nicked?
yeah, yeah,
So, and he's just like that mentality it was just absolutely, it just blew my mind. So even going on that, so yes, like I say, Nask, what we're doing, we're trying to, and I don't know what, this guy could probably do with some guidance from himself, some advice, maybe, I don't know, but as I say what he's saying, but yeah, so he's going in and he's doing this, and we're trying to get the prisoners into some sort of trade when they come out. So, what's your feeling on educating prisoners in mental health first aid or mental health, give them some sort of education in mental health?
educating anybody in mental health. This sounds like a setup, doesn't it? Educating anyone in mental health can only be a plus point because look, there's that many people suffering with it
Yeah,
that like the more people that know about it, it can only be a good thing.
yeah,
In prison, it can only be a good thing because, like I say, it is just amplified. It's it's rife,
yeah,
and there's nowhere to go. And like I say, when you've got help here, you've got pretty much the opposite in there. You've got people waiting to take advantage of you, not help you.
Yeah.
They see you as weak. You are prey.
Yeah, man.
You're not someone to be helped. You're someone to be took advantage of.
Mm.
So, like any kind of training, I used to say to people all the time, used to open the door, all right, do you want to get to education? Nah. Do you want to get to the workshops? Do you want to do something? They got a bricklaying course, you want to do that? Nah.
Mm.
You don't want to do anything?
No.
Nah. I went, you want to sit in here all day? I went, you're on an act book. An act book was like a suicide watch book. So you had to be checked. The prisoner had to be checked every 20 minutes,
Yeah.
half hour, hourly. You know, conversations had to be recorded. So that was like a suicide prevention sort of thing in the prison. Some of them were quite effective, the act books. Some of them weren't so effective. Some prisoners were on an act book as a means for manipulation. But in general, I think they were pretty good. But if you're out of your cell 4 hours a day,
Mm.
learning something which
Mm.
can only benefit you,
Yeah.
even if it don't benefit you, you're still out of your cell doing something.
Mm.
Any education inside prison, whether it be how to lay a brick, whether it be how to help someone with mental health, how to help yourself with mental health,
Mm.
can only be a plus point.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
only be a plus point.
It's something I'm going to chase. I mean, I don't know if you've got any contacts, but what I'm going to do is try and get in touch with the prison service, and try and get some funding from the government where I go in, and like I say, I've got this chess course. It's a couple of hours. I can go and deliver that to 50, 40, 50 people in the morning.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? That's something I look at doing. On the other side, so that's that sort of box stuff. Clearly the prisoners need some sort of mental health education. So they can, even if they can look after their own mental health, they can see things coming. Do you
Oh,
know what I mean?
definitely.
And what about the actual prison officers?
Prison officers are offered no training in mental health. You do like you do basic training and whatnot, and they try and cover a myriad of things, but you can't prepare someone for what you see in there and for what you deal with in there. So any kind of training regarding mental health should be an essential part of your training.
Should be mandatory, shouldn't it?
Should
You go into a building site now, Pete, right? And part of the induction, you'll have 20 minutes on mental health. Do you know what I mean? And from what I know, you don't even get that there as a prison officer.
but then you're not dealing with 80% of your workforce on a building site aren't suffering from mental health.
No,
A minimum of 80% of prisoners are suffering from mental
that's
health,
ridiculous.
and the staff suffer from mental health
Yeah,
because can you imagine seeing different things every day? I used to say to people, some days I used to skip out of there thinking they've paid me for that, and I've had a right old laugh,
mm, mm,
and I did.
yeah,
Some days were harrowing,
yeah.
harrowing. Whether that happened to you, whether you've been assaulted, whether you've watched an assault, whether you've watched self harm, whether you've watched someone die,
Yeah,
like you've got a whole boiling pot of problems in there,
yeah,
and you're paid to deal with them.
yeah, yeah.
As a prison officer, you've got to be a disciplinarian. You've got to be a shoulder to cry on. You've got to be part of the riot squad.
Yeah.
Look, you've got it's like 20 roles in one. But one of the biggest roles is dealing with people with mental health.
Yeah, yeah.
Yet you're not trained on that. You
And
don't have to. You don't have to. You're trained in how to restrain people,
yeah,
but you don't have to restrain 80% of that population. You don't,
mm,
because not 80% of that population are violent.
mm,
80% of that population have got mental health.
yeah.
So when they you get hours and hours of control and restraint training, physical restraint training, and no teaching on mental health. There's a fault there, isn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah, it just don't make sense, does it? I mean, you mentioned last week a couple of situations, and when you talk about them, you know about a guy saying he saw an army walk through the cell, and first thing you do is we giggle, don't we? But then you think, well, hang on a minute, that guy's seen that.
Yeah, yeah,
So what? There's another thing he said to me. What somebody else said as well, something about his television.
yeah. There was a fella. I remember his name. I won't say it,
No.
but like I was called into a cell. Quite a big bloke. Didn't look very well. You can see people. Like his eyes were sunk. He was pale. He had dark rings around his eyes. He was quiet. He was never after a thing. He wasn't manipulative. He was never asked for a thing. He's what they call a grey man in prison.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't even know he's there.
Yeah.
He called me into his cell the once. Says, "Mr. White, can you take my telly out?" Which was a rather unusual request because your telly's your lifeline if you're in your cell 23 hours.
Yeah.
And I says, "Why?" And he went, "It's talking to me." I says, "Well, turn it off." And he went, "It is off."
Right.
And I went, "Right, okay." I says, "You definitely want me to take this out?" And he went, "Yeah." I says, "Not a problem." That isn't the request I get every day. So you could see he was there was something up there. You know what I mean? Like I say, I've had no training in mental health, but you can see when someone isn't right. So I got onto the healthcare wing, and they come across and assessed him and took him over there. For the care was better over there. And then about 2 months, 3 months after, he was returned to us, and he seemed like he was a lot better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, about a week and a half after that, we found him like hanging in his cell, and it
Right.
was too late. He'd gone. You know what I mean? And yeah, that kind of thing. When I say like you become hardened to stuff,
Yeah.
he wasn't a problem to anybody.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound really callous now, but the really problematic ones, you know, you wouldn't care so much. And that sounds really callous, but it's true.
Yeah.
But he kind of didn't deserve that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he didn't deserve that, and and to see him, don't get me wrong, it didn't affect me very much. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just didn't need to happen.
No. No. And you think that mind you, like you say, he had gone away for some stuff, I think, but do you think some sort of level of care would have helped him?
Oh, definitely. Like when you've got to be moved to a healthcare wing to get any kind of attention because there's nobody else to give you that ear, that shoulder, then there's a problem, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because the healthcare can house 70 people. There's 1,500 people in that jail.
Yeah.
1,500, you know
So
what I mean?
I mean, obviously, I think from the chat, it's clear that there's a massive need for education on both sides, and not just that, but even support for the prison officers as well. Because do they get
There,
do they
there
get
are
support?
support teams, yeah, there are support teams. Um, but like that old saying, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
If you're prepared for half the stuff, you know what you're dealing with, and you may know how to deal with it,
Yeah.
rather than dealing with it and then being absolutely shell shocked afterwards because you haven't known what you've been doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there are care teams for officers and stuff like that. The trouble is, a prison is just like a building site. There's machismo. Everyone's macho.
Mm.
Everyone's.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to put up a kind of front
Yep. Yep.
because if not, you're going to get swallowed up.
Yeah.
It's it's a strange place. It's a strange for both. Like I wouldn't want to be a prisoner, and now I wouldn't want to be a prison officer again.
You know what? Obviously, it sounds all these things. Well, we should male orientated. It sounds very much the same. You've got building sites, prisons, uh, the armed forces, even the police. They're all of these places that should, or these organisations that should be getting some level of knowledge, support. I think we just need to get out there and start educating people.
Oh, amen, man. Like the thing is, I'm 50 now. I've started talking about my mental health and other people's mental health last 5 years, perhaps,
Yeah.
and that's because it, it is becoming a bit more common now to share your experiences or to tell someone, hey, listen, I ain't feeling quite right today. There's
Mm-mm,
nothing wrong with it, man.
mm-mm.
Like I say to you, like I'm not a shrinking violet. Like when people knock your door, I flat foot it.
Yep.
I'm not shy,
Yep.
but I will talk to anyone about anything,
Mm.
bar this.
Yeah.
It's only now that I will speak to people
But
about it.
isn't it a shame that they've like the police? I'm sorry, the prison service have lost somebody with your sort of outlook and your way of being. You're no longer in there. But do you think somebody with your sort of your outlook and your compassion won't last in prison as a prison officer?
There's got to be a fine line, you know, like, and that only comes with experience as a screw. You know, like they can teach you what they want. You know, like I come out of there teaching, got onto the landing, and my mentor went, "All right, they've taught you how to do this, this, and this. I will now teach you how to be a screw."
Yeah.
And you can't be something you're not
Mm-hmm.
because you get found out rapidly.
Mm.
You know, in life, the truth will out in the end.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
You know, like I can tell you I'm 10 things. You know, I can tell you I've got a Ferrari and a big house and this, that, and the other. And then next week, you see me out shopping in my old banger,
Mm.
picking up Aldi beans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
It happens.
Mm.
And in there, you can pretend to be, you know, whatever you want, but the truth will come out sooner or later.
Mm. Mm. But what I suppose where I'm getting to really is does the environment organisation sort of not allow for people like yourself to sort of thrive in there?
I,
Or I mean,
I wouldn't
you
say,
mentioned a screw last week. Who I remember being a screw on my wing, and we obviously won't name names, but tough guy. I remember a tough guy, but I always remember he was a fair bloke. Do you know what I mean?
that was me. You know, like, I would say I wasn't really known in there for being the caring, sharing type. I wouldn't. But if you spoke to anyone, uh, the prisoner side or the prison officer side, they would say I was a good screw
Yep.
and they say I was fair.
Yep.
You know, like fair is like I'm not doing something for you because you're dead hard,
Yep.
and I'm not doing it for him because he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would everyone would get treated the same.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like if you needed help, I would try and help. If I thought you were having me over, I wouldn't help.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You know, like, but I'd like to think that I was quite a good judge of character in that respect, and that I could help the ones who wanted help. But you got to help yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like you can't do all the work for someone
You got to protect
and
yourself,
they
haven't
do
you?
nothing.
Yeah. So coming to the end now, Pete. Great chat, brilliant. I think we could have gone for hours. What I always do leave to the end is what's your what you thinking around suicide?
It's bad, man. You know, like I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. It's harrowing. You know, we've had people's families come into the prison and wanted to see the place where the people have died,
Mm,
and it is heartbreaking.
mm,
Even to the most hardened of people, which I thought I was,
mm,
it is heartbreaking. And like for someone to get to that point, and like I think Steve touched on it last week. I don't think it's cowardice. You know, like if you're at that point, you're beyond other people's feelings.
yeah.
You know, like you can only see that one way out, and for you to get there is criminal because everyone should have just someone
Mm,
to talk to.
yeah.
You know, like if you haven't got any friends, you haven't got any family, you should just have just one person that you can go, look, I'm thinking of doing this because I can't see any other alternative.
And do you think how big a part do you think stigma plays in the fact that blokes don't talk about what's going on for them?
It's horrid, man. You know, like I've known you for years. I've always known you as a little tough fella. I class myself as not tough, but like I can handle myself, and like people are scared of letting the guard down, it now.
Yeah.
They're scared of looking vulnerable. They're scared of looking weak, but it ain't weak, is he?
No.
If for one second you let your guard down and you are what you class as vulnerable for 10 minutes, could save your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Save your own life,
We've got to stop talking, haven't we?
definitely. I mean, look, there's no way on God's green earth I thought I'd be walking around Clint talking to you about mental health. You know, like if you would have said this to me 30 years ago,
when we was fighting people
I,
over the bar.
I would have laughed my head off. You know, at 20, when
Yeah.
we're having a drink in the Midland Red, having a dance and like looking for a scrap,
Yeah.
we would be walking around talking about how to stop people killing themselves,
Yeah.
how to stop people harming themselves,
Mm.
how to stop people harming others.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'd have laughed my head off at you.
yeah, yeah.
I'd have laughed my head off at you.
But what a great place to be. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, for me, and we'll end on that. And you know, I can't thank you enough for your time. But it's been great
Been a pleasure,
reconnecting
man.
with you. And you know, I've always known you as a top man.
Likewise,
And
likewise,
brilliant man. And I love you to bits, man.
likewise.
Thanks very much.
No worries, man.
Nice one.